Yo, how's it going on, guys? Welcome back to. No, I'm just kidding. Welcome back to another
Bazinga.
episode of the Field of Dreams podcast. This is episode 3 currently of the day I'm recording this. And today I am here with.
Uh, KJ Valium.
Hi, KJ. So,
Hello.
we're here with him today for this episode. And yeah, let's just have a good time today. Sounds good. Alright. So I'm looking on your form, and the only thing that you put down that you'd like to talk about in this podcast is Elder Scrolls.
Uh, that's kind of my prime fixation right now. Um, I go back and forth with the series, and right now I'm doing pretty good with the Elder Scrolls Online. So, there's that, and there's my music and your music and the absolute state of Vaporwave at large. But yeah, right now Elder Scrolls is my hyper focus. So yeah,
Are you more of a gamer right now or a musician?
I always bounce between the two, and sometimes it's the same thing because I treat music like gaming sometimes. Uh, that's kind of how I grown up. It's either I'm playing video games or I'm listening to music or practicing piano or listening to the radio. So it's all kind of like melted into my brain as one big thing. You
Alright.
know, having good musician moments is about the same as having a good gamer moment. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard that you play piano. You do in real music?
Where'd you hear that? Where'd you hear that? Yeah, I came from a musical family. Everybody, everyone plays an instrument as part of their scholastic build up, and yeah, I was no different. And I kind of took to it differently, where you know I was I was okay with piano lessons off and on, but my focus was more on um, chasing after weird sounds than following exactly what the black keys and the white keys were doing. Um, yeah,
Alright, alright. How many people are in your family?
I'm the youngest of eight.
8?
Woohoo!
Oh
Eight.
my god. I can only.
Welcome to America. Welcome to America.
Bro, I'm an only child. How do you have 8 people in your family? Good god.
Welcome to That's all I gotta say. Like, some people are capable of what they're doing, and my parents were capable of having a large family, so that's how that happened.
Wow. So, what does each of your members play? I heard your. Well, yeah, you said that you come from a musical family.
Not like in a professional sense, but everybody does their thing, and it's mostly based off like what's available at school and stuff, whatever the scholastic program is for enriching your brain and your soul and all that. So, growing up, yeah, everybody played their different instrument, and I kind of followed my dad playing trumpet at first, and then the way that the band program worked, there was more demand for people playing trombone and tuba because everybody picks up the small instruments first. And so as I grew up, I got the bigger instruments as I went. Um, yeah, and so yeah, I as far as my scholastic path goes, the last thing I was playing was the tuba.
Before you picked up digital music making?
Yeah, yeah.
Alright, that's neat. I never really met anyone that had like a, like a in real serious person dedicated music thing.
Yeah, I've that let's see, it says you're 18.
Yeah.
Um, So I was adopted into the internet, but you were born into it and all that. And people pick up music in different ways, and in the pre-internet sense, it was physical media. It was what was being played on the radio, which still exists now. And then there's the scholastic side where people teach classical jazz and folk stuff in schools and stuff. Uh, and so that's kind of and yeah, that was always kind of my fundamental understanding with it at first, along with like you know whatever is family appropriate in terms of soundtracks and um, music artists and stuff.
All right.
Um, yeah,
Sounds like you had a fun time.
and in that regard, yes.
So, it's kind of a weird shut off to switch to a different topic right now, but since you did put it on your form, why don't we talk about Elder Scrolls for a little bit? Uh,
Okay.
how'd you get into it if it's your main, obsession right now?
um, well, along with growing up in a musical family, I also grew up in a nerd family where, uh, stuff like Wizards of the Coast stuff was always prevalent. So, along with Nintendo games and stuff. So, I grew up in kind of I kind of grew up fantasy brained in that regard. So, when it came time for me to play to buy games for myself. I remember buying Morrowind when I was 16, using my paycheck from my first job, and really enjoying that. And that moved on to uh, Oblivion, and uh, you know onward and upward from there. Yeah.
Hmm. Why Elder Scrolls of all games?
I feel like it's the only it's been the only like fantasy series that's been consistent and takes itself seriously. You had it kind it it was kind of it has that first person action sense of you are the player, you make your choices with your character. You had the in the 90s, you also had like more D&D like structures from Baldur's Gate and Forgotten Realms and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of like personalized character development and personal impact on the game world, that's what Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall and Morrowind was able to really commit to. Um, and that's what kind of set it apart, what made it different. And it has a very deep and uh, historically based lore. It's not based off like Saturday cartoons or um, you know funny stuff like that, like other series are. Um, so it's not like stuck to any sort of like stereotypes of folklore or fantasy or either. It really makes its own. Um, it makes its own definitions of everything, which I really enjoy. Um, so it's kind of like hard to apply the same principles of Elder Scrolls to other series like Dark Souls or Baldur's Gate or whatever, um, because you're kind of stuck in their story, not your story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. So, when did you get into Elder Scrolls?
Um, it kind of there's kind of a balance between what is marketable and what what the definition of roles of what is popular, I guess. So, and in that regard, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion came out like right after the Lord of the Rings films, which I also enjoyed as a kid. I read the books as a kid and I watched the movies, and then there wasn't like a really good. There was those movie tie-in games, but um, those didn't have like a strong. Uh, they were the Lord of the Rings games during that generation. They were just kind of based off the movies rather than based off the whole lore, um, with the exception of what is it called, the Third Age or something like that. But game didn't sell very well. So in terms of like being able to put yourself in that kind of fantasy situation and whatnot, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion kind of fit that um, void that everyone was missing. And so um, yeah, it was something that I went to my friend's house and I watched him play, and I was like, whoa. you um, you know there's the bad influence of kids being into like Grand Theft Auto or whatever, and it's like, if I want my own personalized world, I wouldn't want that to be reflected off of like uh,
Yeah.
the contemporary era. I would want it in a fantasy area. So it's like, yeah, um, you know, being able to mess around with the fantasy world was much more appealing to me than something like GPT-8. Yeah.
So you'd much rather play games that are make believe than are based off of reality, or
Well, I've come to learn that GTA is not really based off of reality either. It's more based off of TV shows and
oh yeah.
movies and um, you know silly parody kind of stuff. So yeah, um, you know, so yeah, I'm still kind of fantasy brained in that kind of sense, and of course, my preferred character to play is the Argonian, and so there's, in terms of like uh scaly lizard folk representation, Elder Scrolls also does that the best.
Hmm. Do you think you would have ever found the fantasy game situation or fantasy world type if you weren't born into a, like a gamer family?
I would have. I
Fa-
mean, everything is exposed to you at all times, so that kind of that kind of question is kind of expired in a way, because
yeah.
you know everything is exposed to you at once. This, that's always been my understanding, and that's the understanding from here on henceforth. Obviously you lean and learn from your family first, and then everything else follows. But yeah, it was a perfect combination of things. Like I didn't really take to sports well or any other normalized social activity. It was always just card games, board games, and video games.
Is there any specific, well, probably Dungeons and Dragons, honestly, but is there any card
Right.
games that you find interesting?
Not anymore, really. Like, it's just, um, it's a different setting for a different time, and there's not that much interaction with board games anymore, unless you're doing it with personal personalized set of people. Like, there are adaptations of board games into video games online, and that's cool. But there's there are some old board games, like the one board I could think of is Talisman, where it was kind of a RPG setting where you kind of build up your character, and that you kind of have a contest with trying to get into the middle of the board map as soon as possible and beat the boss. And so, depending on how you, it was like a, yeah, it was like a generalized board game adaptation of um, any other pen and paper stuff. So there was that back in the day. Yeah, nowadays I don't really play board games unless I'm forced into it, or you know, someone needs a player or whatever.
All right, all right. Oh yeah. Really weird question, but I thought I'd ask this. Has anyone ever told you that your voice is really soothing to listen to?
Um, I've had that compliment given to me over and over again, and it's like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I've been to, I've done plenty of choir stuff and
You
stuff,
weren't quite.
so
Oh yeah, that
I've,
it kind of makes sense.
yeah, so I've kind of learned my role in that kind of way. But whenever I listen to myself, I always sound super nerdy and autistic and stuff. But it's better to do a voice. It's better to do a video call uh, like this instead of like talking in person, because yeah, I get more
Yeah,
I get more distracted in that regard.
that's one of the reasons why I kind of started this to make people have their voice heard, like over a call
Right.
where they're quote unquote safe or feel safe in that matter.
Yeah. No, I'm just talking into a microphone and hearing words and stuff. It's not so bad.
Well, you do have a really soothing voice. I will give you that.
Thank you.
There was one question I was gonna ask you, but I literally forgot about it. God dang it. Alright. Whatever.
That's unfortunate.
I know. I'll probably remember it like 30 minutes down the line. So,
All right. So
I'm like,
I'll ask you this. In terms of relating points with each other, there's all it's gonna be vaporwave. It's gonna be freshwater media. It's gonna be slush wave. So how'd you get yourself into all that? Like, you could either go back to when you were born or start from freshwater media and go backwards.
so I might do your second point, going backwards from vaporwave
That
and
sounds,
freshwater.
yeah, I think that sounds more generally interesting. Shout out freshwater.
Hell yeah! This is the one of like the most kindest and safest communities I've honestly been in, and I've been in quite a lot. So yeah. So starting from freshwater from today, it goes back to the signal wave server when 171, or I'll just call him 71, promoted his server. I think actually no. Yeah, it was from an event actually. And then once I signed up, he realized that I wasn't in a server, so he just sent me a DM and then I joined a server. From Signal Wave, it's
Yeah.
actually an interesting story because while I was always fascinated with music ever since I was a child, going from music in general to Signal Wave of all things was quite an interesting story. The main thing that really connected me to Signal Wave was the caretaker, honestly. He does, you probably heard it's just a burning memory off of memes and stuff like that. But
Yeah. Have you listened to the other stuff that the artist does? The Caretaker was one of his many projects.
uh like what do you mean, like his albums or his aliases?
Aliases,
Oh,
yeah.
aliases. Yeah, I've listened to some other of them.
I have not. I only really know the Caretaker, and it's like, yeah, it's really nice when a project like that explodes. But all of his other stuff has been kind of obscure throughout the decades.
Yeah.
So that's. I was just curious.
So we could talk about the caretaker later if you want, but going back to the original question that you asked, it all started with
Right.
the caretaker. I went from music, and then I just randomly found on a iceberg. No, it wasn't. It was like this darkest side of you. Oh, it was by Buffy. Yeah, Buffy uploaded a video called the weird side of YouTube, I think, and at the very end, it showcased everywhere at the end of time by the caretaker, or Kirby as his real name goes. And then after that, I just got
Hmm.
immediately hooked on it because the idea of a dementia album per se, it just piqued my interest, and ever since then, I've been addicted to him. And he's been like my idol practically. So after the addiction with the caretaker, I like starting mid to late last year, I started to want to try and expand my music influence because I was mainly making albums off the caretaker work, like a fan project type deal, and I wanted to try something different and expand like the genre while still being within the sample usage range. So I tried looking for other communities that were similar to him, and Signal Wave was the one that piqued my interest, both because it was a unique turn on, analog and vinyl, like the old classic style, like those two were connected, and also because
Hmm.
Signal Wave had a lot of similar characteristics that Kirby used. So I looked into the Signal Wave scene, found CT57. That was the main thing that got me into the community, and the rest is history from there.
Very good.
Like I'm doing a presentation.
I mean, in a people make their impact, whether it be in small niche communities or beyond. We definitely have our community staples and stuff. I don't really consider myself to be one or aspiring to be one, but I do appreciate the what I think what really helps caretaker with their like popularity and whatnot is that um it is based off of you know the sampling and stuff. It is kind of given in a archival historic format where the samples themselves aren't really that much of a secret to be kept or whatever.
Yeah,
It's just how it's presented and how it's kind of given into the narrative and stuff. So that's a I always kind of see um that kind of hauntology sampling you know further contextualized into Signal Wave as like kind of giving your story with media interaction, especially with it all being like a recent phenomenon. you
yeah,
know
definitely.
be, uh, from phonographs from the 1920s and to all sorts of physical and digital media for the last century or so.
Definitely, definitely. Uh, yeah.
So my interaction with freshwater water media is kind of finding this uh you know I I don't like to stick myself to like a specific genre or community. I'm kind of a wavering vagabond, so to speak.
Yeah.
I find myself in all sorts of underground and experimental scenes, not necessarily just vaporwave, but other stuff too. And so I kind of had my own particular fondness and um, fascination with Signal Wave. When people kind of do it right, when it's more than just a copy paste filter of old samples and stuff. And so, but I kind of wanted to cater into that a bit more. So, the album I dropped on Fresh Matter Media is called Family Computer, which I don't know if you've took a look at or not, but that's kind of like my love letter to the scene, and also to the content and context that I provided with it.
It's nice. Uh, what's your alias?
Um, so the name KJ Volume, it's kind of just based off what I wanted to do with electronic music going into it. I've never been able to do well with you know making programming music on a software um, type of situation.
Yeah.
Like I'm not into. I just use Audacity, and I bought my keyboard, and I use the sound tools on my keyboard and stuff, and that makes music somehow. And um, it's better for me to look at music as the waves rather than the instrument blocks or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm getting into like ambient music and stuff, I don't want it to be bricked into a format or whatever. I just want to make it make it be what it wants to be, so to speak. So the KJ surname is just it just means keyboard jockey. So I play the keyboards and it does stuff, and instead of playing discs or a digital whatever DJs do. I don't know. Yeah.
So then,
um,
what does the VL stand for?
Valium. It was kind of a mix between I kind of had a obsession with Pokemon as well, so I had my Pokemon character uh, OCs and stuff too, along with Elder Scrolls. So it was just a mix of Van the Vaporeon and Folium the Sceptile, and so I just mashed it together to be Valium, and made that as kind of like my reptilian mascot or whatever.
Gosh.
And so folium, foliage, van, water, that kind of stuff. So it was meant to be like a holistic natural thing, and then later on I learned that it's an actual anti-anxiety drug which people abuse and
Yeah,
stuff.
I kind of learned that how the hard way.
Yeah, and so learning how people treat the drug and the effects and why people take it and stuff. It's like, hey, music is my drug, so it kind of fits still. So that kind of works. But at the same time, if you try to search for KJ Valium on Instagram or whatever, it kind of gives you a disclaimer of drug abuse or whatever. So it's
Yeah.
like um, with um, the KJVL pseudonym, it's better to Google or whatever. For the longest time, I didn't care. If you find it, you find it. If you don't, you don't, type of thing. But with KJVL, it's easier to find, and it also sounds like a radio station, which growing up on the radio, I've always appreciated that medium. So that kind of fit together.
Have you always ever wanted to be popular, both either as a musician or a gamer?
Not necessarily. I've when I was a teenager and I was, looking into and researching the music industry and stuff. I kind of saw the ups and downs of all of it, and I feel like the best thing you could do as a musician is just to stay busy, and so that's kind of like what I measure my success with.
Yeah.
Am I still interacting with crowds? Am I still doing things? Uh, you can't really ask for success after that. It's, you know, it, I don't really feel like uh, fitting myself into algorithm slop or whatever. And there's different ways you could do that without compromising your artistic value. But it's like, uh, in terms of keeping my life in balance and check, it's not something I'm willing to really get into. Like, there's different ways to make ambient music popular. Using kind of like the footsteps that um, the caretaker kind of made. Not, I don't think he intentionally made it to be a popular thing. It just kind of does what it,
It
it
kind of just
it
blew
just
up my
happened like
luck,
that.
honestly, at that point.
Yeah, and that's the measure of success is mostly luck. Like, some people would disagree, but you know,
I agree.
there's yeah, there's plenty of people with great work ethic that aren't getting millions of bot streams or
Oh,
whatever
bots. Bro.
bots. And so, with my music format, I'm kind of cheeky with it, and I I kind of there was that time pre that I was a kid in the '90s and stuff, and that was cool and all, and then once the 9/11 shift happened, I became more and more internet brained. So
Oh, yeah.
I kind of play into all that.
Own? Oh, fuck. Oh, damn.
Hello.
What? I don't know what the flip happened.
What the crud? Did you miss anything I was saying?
uh, uh, you talked about 9/11 and the freaking. It was that part. I got to it.
Yeah, the internet shift. So,
Yeah.
you know, um, I found myself in like video game forums during the 2000s, stuff like GameSpot and the emerging websites that was happening at the time, both with gaming and with the emergent value of memes on the internet and stupid videos, and which led to YouTube and everything that the glorious platform of YouTube has given us. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Do you like YouTube now, or is it, shifted from when you first started out on it?
I still find stuff that I'm interested in. Um, it's obviously changed over the years.
Yeah.
Different creators have their spotlight different times. Like, um, there's also the flash animation aspect of it.
Oh, yeah.
Before YouTube, everyone kind of gravitated to YouTube in their way, but uh, yeah, there's a good like cultural capsule made with one of the Weezer music videos, Pork and Beans, where it kind of shows the golden age of YouTube is in all the memes and characters of that time. So if you ever,
Yeah.
that's a good starting point. And then there's a bunch of like archival websites and stuff that kind of go into the internet history and stuff. And there's plenty of quote unquote internet historians that kind of give their personal account and everything else that was going on. So yeah, I was a fan of the early days of flash animation and game parodies, music parodies. I would say like my first actual favorite musical artist would be Weird Al, because
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah.
I remember listening to his CDs and cassettes in the '90s, and he's always stayed relevant with the industry over the decades. So that's and he's a bit of a YouTuber now with his YouTube page. So
Yeah. Hold on.
so
Yeah.
that so I always value silliness and parodies and all that kind of stuff. So that's always existed on the internet, along with the rise of memes and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah.
If there is one thing you could bring back from your age to today, what would it be?
um I guess from my teenage heyday, um I don't know, like it you know there's plenty of people that say that that part of the internet sucked because of how ir- irreverent it was, and how cyberbullying is an actual problem that has caused pain and trauma to people, and it's like we could do away with that for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, the '90s sucked in its own way. Uh, it's not all. It's that's the fun thing about vaporwave is you could try and glorify a utopia of some sorts, but it it
Yeah.
it all comes from some sort of conflict. The we could criticize, we could retro aspect do a retro aspect of the '80s, and
Oh my god.
talk about how it caused all the problems and stuff that we're dealing with today. And so I don't know if I could really bring back something. I guess ownership, that's kind of like the latest contending point, is that there's no such thing as ownership anymore. And
Yeah, there
you
really
know
is.
so people, Gen Z is going back to '90s hardware, because '90s hardware still works, and everything doesn't work anymore.
Everything's
So
owned by corporations now. Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, personal ownership over things you buy is definitely something that we can we could keep keep going on, I
Restore
guess.
back to, yeah.
Yeah. So um I'm not really much of a fan of Nintendo anymore, because they don't really value ownership anymore. Everything is part,
I mean, technically,
the
not
Switch 2.
anything anymore is really, you can own.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so having your own like personal Nintendo library is cool and all, but there's no profit incentive from uh, the Nintendo of today to kind of respect that. So they have to do everything in their own way to
Yeah.
keep you. And of course, it's cheaper than what other people are doing, but the fact that they're still doing it with the Switch 2 is uh, it,
That, yeah.
yeah, you could miss me with all that. I'm not interested in the Switch 2 or whatever Nintendo is wanting to do nowadays. So yeah, like my favorite game of all time is Metroid Prime, and Metroid Prime was my vaulting point from being a kid at home to being a teen on the internet, because I wanted to watch other people play it, and that kind of the whole history of Metroid Prime kind of is laced with the history of internet gaming culture, because that's one of the first games that was really developed into like a speedrunning community. And the development of speedrunning that game, along with Quake and Half-Life, those first-person games. Not to say it was those three games were certainly the most more important games in terms of that community development, and then that kind of branched out to all the other games. And it was kind of nice to personally see that part of history for myself, and not just have to watch a YouTube video. But so um, I don't know how I got to that topic, but yeah, speedrunning is also something that I'm really into, I guess.
We can go on about it. I mean, talk about whatever on
Yeah,
your mind.
yeah. Well, it's like all these things I kind of talk about do affect and influence what my musical output is. And you know, um, I don't really, I don't really, I don't really make my music outside in. It's all inside out, basically. So I have my influences from people in the community here and there, but it mostly comes from um, what I've learned as a kid, and what I've enjoyed, and what I have to what I have to give for myself and stuff.
Yeah, that's nice.
So, yeah, I feel like my next release is going to be an album that's based off. It's not based off musical, like video game music, but it's like a soundtrack to um, gaming in general. So it's like the feeling of gaming put into music. So not necessarily like fake soundtrack to a game that never came out or anything like that, but it's kind of like channeling my gaming efforts into music creation, so to speak. So that's going to be something interesting to publish and stuff
I'm,
for
ex-
5 people to listen to.
I'm
So
excited
yeah.
for that. What's your
Oh,
Bandcamp?
thank you.
Is it just
It's just kjvalium@bandcamp.com. I'll type it in for you. And
all right? I could just type it in the Bandcamp URL or the search bar.
yeah, no, there you go.
Well, that works too.
Yeah.
Copy paste. Ooh. Oh. Oh my god, my fucking dog.
My dog.
You're a lot like tacos with the album covers. Just
Tacos.
previous podcaster that I did, like the first,
Oh, okay.
yeah, a lot
Oh,
similar with
I'll
the album covers. Just slap whatever.
I'll be sure to listen to that podcast episode too.
I got like 3 backed up. I still need to master all of them. No, you're not getting the freaking cat that's outside. I already know he's barking at a damn cat that's outside. Anyways, your most recent. Oh yeah, what is your profile picture on Bandcamp? Just to go?
That's a lizard. That's a lizard. That's a lizard man. That's me.
Oh, oh, I kind of can see it now.
Yeah, that's my Argonian character. It's a really old picture, and it's something I should replace. But that's what I first uploaded, and I haven't touched it since.
Oh, bored. Why that as a profile picture, and not anything else?
uh, you know, in terms of like idealization and stuff, I kind of fit into that uh, furry fandom network. That's something that's also been part of my internet development, is learning about furries and stuff, and my and I gravitate more to reptiles than anything. So, you know, lizard people are lizard people are the superior race and all that.
Hell yeah.
Whether you're talking about fantasy or uh, what we're dealing with now in the modern day age, yeah.
Yeah. So your most recent album. Oh my freaking god. So your most recent album, it says you actually used like no samples in it. You used actual equipment.
For the most part. So what this recent album is, Riga Rita. It's been 10 years since my first album, so my first album kind of sitting there in the bottom. The album art isn't that great. It was just kind of a uh, slap together thing on MS Paint, and I like the glitch design that I was able to do for like the title. Um, all the songs in that first album had its own like song art, and that was cool to do. But um, that was like when I was first kind of messing with my keyboard and trying to record it onto Audacity and stuff. I didn't know it's all been like self-taught and making mistakes and stuff, and so that first album is very much ramshackled together, and I've learned a lot better things to do.
Yeah. Everyone makes progression.
And the yeah, and so my other albums I made um in that early inception point from 2016 to 2018, um I was able to salvage through like remastering and stuff. um this one I just wanted to remake entirely because when I play the songs for myself and I'm listening it directly through my headphones, it sounds like one thing, and then when I try and record it and get the best take and do post production, it sounds like a completely different thing. So I wanted it to be a bit more honest in that approach. So I just pretty much remade the whole album, did the songs differently and stuff. But everything kind of fits the same compositional points and whatnot. You know, I'm not following like sheet music or anything, but I know to move from one movement to the other type of thing. Um, and there's an exception with the last song, number 7. It is based off of a sample from a song I was really into in 2015. It was, it was it's by the band Low, and it's called The Innocents. And um, I feel like when I first got my keyboard in 2015, my uh, during my I'm 34 now, and during my
Oh
20s
wow.
what I wanted to do with music is to join a band and work with the band, that kind of thing. And um, I picked up the bass guitar when I was a teenager, and um, I just kind of saw myself as like the supporting fill-in type member, not like the star in the front center star or whatever. Because I never was really into guitar music. In terms of performing it myself, I never really found my way with that. I went from trumpet to tuba, and there's a lot more solo trumpet players than there are solo tuba players.
Yeah.
So I always find myself in kind of a supporting role or whatever. So um, when it came to getting my keyboard, that's where my attitude kind of changed. I was able to um, with my Triton be able to make a full sound based off like progressive electronic music from the 70s and 80s and stuff. New age, uh, electronica, industrial, that whole side of thing. And then cracking into my YouTube affiliation, I eventually found my way into vaporwave during that time, and listening to, watching fake Jeff Seed tutorials, and finding the relationship between meme culture and music performance and stuff. Uh, all the old websites from the 2000s, they had their own staple songs and stuff, and
Yeah.
one of the most popular examples of that is uh, Rick Astley.
Never gonna give
Never-
you up.
yeah, that was like one of the earliest songs that people loved, and stuff. And
That figures as
if
much.
you, it, I'm gonna type this in. If you look up the YTM&D soundtrack, you could find more songs like that um, that were popular at the time. But of course, Rick Astley was um, the enduring the enduring meme, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that was the 2000s, and then 2010s was vaporwave and internet music and post-internet and whatnot. And when I when I first was like looking into like electronic music, um, in the 2000s when I was a teenager, it was all about Brian Eno and um, Vangelis and all that kind of progressive ambient direction. And then I never really got to like dance music or whatever. I know most most vaporwave musicians get into it because they want to make retro dance music or whatever, and it's like that's not really me. I enjoy dance music to an extent, but not enough to be like a DJ or anything.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not my language. I was more into progressive rock and industrial stuff, like Skinny Puppy and um, um Laibach and Frontline Assembly, that whole family of artists and musicians. And it was all kind of. And then there's some popular songs that come out here and there that kind of enter my space, but and dealing with like what my high school peers were listening to and stuff, I never really got into like pop punk either, so that was kind of meh. So when it came to developing a solo personalized album, At first I was practicing the keyboard to like play along with bands that didn't really have a keyboardist or whatever. And me playing keyboards along to the song The Innocents by Low kind of led to all the musical motifs that I use for the full album. And so I figured by the end of the album, I should just do some sort of remix of the album to fit into fit into the flow of it, basically.
Hell yeah. What make?
And
Oh, you go.
yeah, you could ask whatever. I
Then
already said a lot.
no, it's all right. That's what this point is. Um,
Yeah.
what were your most major influences for making your music or influencing your music tastes in general?
Yeah, I always maintain that vaporwave kind of started in the 70s when and also like the whole people in the 60s and 70s, they were nostalgic for the 40s, 30s, 20s,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. There's always there's always a nostalgic generation that enjoys stuff from before. So during the 60s and 70s, you had people like Klaus Schultz and Tangerine Dream, that whole German uh, field of Berlin School aspirants. They were both developing um, music made by the Moog and electronic instruments, and at the same time, they were also, um, the first Klaus Schultz album was a organ recording. It was basically like a psychedelic sampling of plunderphonic thing, where he was doing electronic effects with a organ recording. And so that was like one of the first instances of creating music with old music, and playing on top of it and stuff. So you know in that regard, I kind of say that Klaus Schultz was the original vaporwaver back in the 70s. And sampling old music has become like a primary interest focal point for electronic music in general, not just playing instruments, playing sine waves and stuff, but manipulating the sound manipulation is always a focal point. So um that's kind of like where most of my influence comes from, because that's kind of like what I'm most compatible with right now with music um creation and stuff. um and of course, Audacity is a really easy you know it's a easy a thing to use. It, just being able to chop and screw and remix other people's music and turn it into something else. And um I just like being able to do it both ways and come up with the same thing, I guess. What I play on the keyboard is going to sound pretty similar to what I'm sampling and stuff, so it kind of works out together.
Yeah. Well, since we're on the topic of your music and influences, on your most recent album, is there anything that you regret not doing, like now that it's a week later?
um I kind of regret the creation process because I've had the idea on my mind for a while, but I never sat down to actually like record and produce it until the night before the day of the anniversary. So it was
Oh
a
my god.
massive it was a massive procrastination on my part.
Yeah.
So um and it's like um the yeah um so I published it in the morning, and then I went to a open mic night downtown with my keyboard and played some of the songs um, in the 15-minute format. And I felt like what I played that night was better than how I performed it, recorded it in the morning. So
Oh my god.
that's that's the fun thing about making music like this is that it kind of gives me um the freedom and versatility to um not be stuck in one recording
Yeah.
and say that's how the song is or whatever. You know, there's some bits and pieces of the album 10 years ago where personally I kind of enjoy it better than how I did it now, but um accessibility is still an important thing when it comes to music publication. So um, I I feel like this remake is a lot more accessible than the old one. It's not as fuzzy, it's not as lo-fi. It does sound better um, in terms of like the mastered product or whatever. So that's cool. And I always still have the freedom to perform it any way I want whenever I play live again. So that's good. And apparently that's kind of a controversial thing nowadays is that kids listen to album by Geese and then Geese performs it differently or whatever, and they get they're just so brain dead
Oh my
that
god,
they can't
yeah.
comprehend musical interpolation or live interpretation or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
They want it
well,
to be one to one instead of how it's, you know.
yeah, and yeah, listening to rock music in general, it's like, uh, you know, there's boring cover bands that play the same hits at bars and stuff. It's like it's no different than listening to the radio, or whatever. And then there's like going to the actual mastercraft of the original artists and stuff, and hearing them being able to perform in live is always a there needs to be a new unique point to it. Like I can't understand. I'm I, I'm trying to I can't I'm trying to do better about understanding like the appeal of uh listening parties and raves and stuff. Like there's some music that you just have to just press play and let it do its thing.
Yeah.
But I really love DJs that treat it like a art form, like the being able to chop it up and mix it well with other songs and stuff. That's always a good thing. Mashup mixes has always been a thing on the internet as well. Like,
Always. And I still love them.
yeah, and so when that's kind of like how I take to sampling is just being able to mash up two or three different sounding things and bend them together. So I do have a sample project called Ponder that's been doing pretty good. That's the album before that pink and blue one. So that one is 100% sample based.
Ponder.
So, yeah.
Is there going to be a
So
volume 2?
I'm working on it. I've been kind of like teasing and stuff. Do you know about the Sanctuary Fest?
No.
How about Enter the Void?
I know
Anything like
that,
that?
yeah.
Okay, so I did publish mixes of Volume 2, not like so the full album is still something that I have to do, but I made a 20-minute mix for Sanctuary 2025, and then I made a 45-minute mix for Enter the Void. So there is a Volume 2. I just haven't gotten around to actually finalizing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, being able to post the whole extended the original volume 1 was formatted to be able to fit into a CD, and so there was a lot of like compressing and shortening of tracks that I had to do in order to do that. So the extended version is just a digital kind of splat of all the original mixes and stuff before I shortened it for the yeah.
Do you ever see yourself going into future mixes?
What's a future mix?
as in like if you were invited to a compilation or going out live and making out a new, you know, if going live for a completely new mix that people have never heard before, would you?
I've done that a couple times, yeah.
Hmm.
That's kind of like how I treat, you know, uh, uh, internet festivals and stuff. Is like I just mix together. I just kind of make a block of a mix block rather than just play going from song to song. You know, so that's the interesting thing I kind of do with the internet mixes is you know, sometimes I'll have two of my songs playing at the same time mixed together in a funny way, and then it merges into a third song playing, and then you know it continues from there. So that's kind of like how I deal with the URL compilations and stuff.
Hell yeah. Gotta love to hear that.
It's on most of them are on my YouTube page, so
Ooh,
you
what's
can
your
check it out
YouTube?
there.
Or is it just the same thing as your Bandcamp?
The link is in there, and I'll throw it at you here just for
Alright.
convenience. Yeah, my first internet name was Mr. Aaron, which was based off the Metroid series, so that hasn't changed over the years. I haven't bothered to make a new one or whatever. I just kind of changed the name on it. So, yeah, all my visual collaborations and mixes and live concerts. That's kind of like where I dump all that.
Definitely gonna go check it out.
I'm not very good with the visual stuff. I haven't really, you know, I love movies and I love the creation process of movies, but I never really uh, found my way into that kind of discipline. You know, I was rejected as a child actor back in the day, and we left that history.
Jeez. Dang, alright.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up. Well, we're actually a little over the 1 hour mark. So, is there anything that you want to talk about this time?
uh, if you play Elder Scrolls Online, hit me up. I'll help you out, I guess. Since
I'll
we
help
started with
you
that.
out. Oh my god, bro.
Well, you know, I'm not like the best player or whatever, but I am doing like hard mode and game content in there. So, you know, if you enjoy Elder Scrolls and the wait for Elder Scrolls 6 is too long, you know, you could always you could always just play the Elder Scrolls Online instead. And yeah. Along with that, yeah, I'm developing the video game music album, Ponder Volume 2. I'm gonna be doing more stuff in like the KJVL discipline as well, where it's a lot more vaporwave community focused.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind with the KJ volume stuff. That's much more wild uh with the synth community and noise and all that kind of stuff. We haven't really touched into the whole harsh noise stuff that I do, but it's not something I'm terribly proud of. It's just like noise people are open minded and they have a lot better discipline with live sound and concerts and stuff. So you know, I appreciate it for the most part, but you know that's just part of me not fitting into one general sound or community. You know, so yeah.
Hell.
I, I find myself in lots of different pockets, but not strongly in one in particular. So yeah. So yeah,
Well,
check me out, check you out, check everyone out. You know, keep the community strong and do your best and be nice to people.
you heard him. Check out his Elder Scrolls account and make sure to stalk him every time he goes into a game.
Uh, you know, there's a lot of other games I'm playing that are a lot easier. You know, I like my casual games too. It's just yeah.
Well, we're coming up to the end here. Is there any final remarks that you want to say?
Shout out to all my friends I made along the way, and if you don't like me for any more reason, uh, sorry.
Dang. All right. Oh well, I don't give a shit about you. Well, oh my
Thank
god.
you. Thank you.
Th- Thank you for coming on here.
Thanks for having me. This was fun. And yeah, I hope you do well with your podcast and whatever you want to do with yourself.
Yeah.
I did listen to your last album, and that was pretty cool.
Aw,
All right,
thank you.
all right, all right. Bye bye.
Peace.